our amazing garage where all great things happen. And it's such a privilege today that we're here to hear this true story of a real hero who makes it, through. I mean, this story is amazing. And you have Alicia Doyle here, my friend. Can you hear me? I have Alicia Doyle here, my friend and author. She's fabulous. It's centered here in Simi Valley. And then here we are in Simi Valley to tell the story. Thank you so much for picking the junkyard. We appreciate you. Alicia.
Thank you, Evelyn, and thank you for hosting us. And we really appreciate everybody that showed up to support us today. So I'm going to read just something from the book, and then I'm going to hand everything over to Flo.
Can you turn this up?
Oh.
Yeah, he's gonna.
Is it better? Try it.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Sorry, bring the microphone up.
Is there no way to raise this a little bit? Thank you. Can you hear me now? Yeah. So I'm reading from chapter 1, and for those of you that haven't read this, the context is I started meeting with Flo about over 2 years ago, and we met once a week for over a year, conducting these very powerful interviews where Flo was extremely vulnerable and shared her heart with me. So it's chapter 1, it's the oath, and I open every chapter with a quote. So this quote is by Solon. The opening quote is, "Put more trust in nobility of character than in an oath." When I think of a promise, I contemplate the promises I've made, promises I've broken promises that almost broke me. A promise is a responsibility, a declaration that one will do a particular thing or that one will make something happen. But a promise is deeper than this simple definition, especially when we make a promise to ourselves. What does a promise have to do with this book? An oath is a promise, but it is considered more serious as a solemn pledge to God or a higher authority. Flo Trapani took several oaths in her lifetime, and like many who make such ceremonious vows, she intended to keep each of them. She believed in true love when she exchanged wedding vows, making an oath before God's friends and family. She believed in the value of law enforcement while taking an oath to protect and serve when she became a police officer in the 1980s. She believed in justice, and when her fellow officers conspired to remove her from their ranks, she vowed to unveil the scandal. In the end, Flo made an oath to herself to remain resilient in her convictions, despite the residue of loss, heartache, betrayal, and threats, and fear of retribution that linger to this day.
Yeah.
My daughter's gonna say, "Oh, Mom, you're gonna cry." So first, the reason I'm crying is not about the book. It's because I look out here to this audience and I see friends from 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. I just met a new friend, Brad, and I beat him in ping pong. What can I say? I see people that have meant so much in my life through different scenarios. And I tend to talk a lot. I want to tell every story how I met this person and that person and this person. And a few of you guys are in the book, not by name, but you'll know who you are. And I just want to, I've never done this before because I've never had a book written about me, but I've spoken a lot about my time at the police department. I have spoken ever since I retired about it, so that I'm very comfortable with. but I do want to say how very much I appreciate everyone coming here today to, I guess, give respect to Alicia, the author, who this never would have happened without Alicia, and come here to hear about my life. Now, can I just ask how many people have read the book? Okay, so a few of you guys already know some things, and how this all started was that years ago when I ended up retiring out of the police department because I actually had no choice. I was a police officer from 1982 to 1990, and the day that I did not show up to work was the day that my lieutenant called me at home and said, "Do not come to work today. It's a death sentence should you show up." And I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" "Your fellow officers will not back you up in patrol." They were in the briefing room. They talked about if Flo gets a call and needs help, we are not backing her up. So that was my last, in fact, that's why I never showed back up to work. So what happened was I sued the city, and because of that, it was very public in the newspapers. This is back in 89, 90, and there was one particular news article, and it was an LA Times article, and the headline was something about divorce and harassment. And so I had received a call from an entertainment person who said that they read this article and they were interested in doing a movie about my life as it pertained to the police department and everything that happened there. So I ended up signing a movie contract with that particular person. It was an actual production company, Sheldon Leonard Production Company, and they were going to shop us out to Lifetime. And I went, they had everything for me. They had the entertainment lawyer, they had the producer, the director, they had the screenwriter. And I was having meetings and meeting with these people, and I literally signed a contract to have this movie made. And you have to understand, back then, I'm so much older and more mature now, but back then I was kind of messed up. I was really messed up because I had gone through years of abuse, really, and to find out that you're going to your job and they're not going to, you could die because people are not going to be there for you. It was a really trying time. I had gone through a terrible divorce, child custody. But anyway, what happened was people started telling me, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Because back then, some of you read the book, and we don't use real names. Some are real names. But back then, I was naming everybody. I didn't care. They did all these terrible things. They deserved to be known. So people would tell me, "Aren't you afraid that they're going to more harm done to you?" And then my mom, who's no longer with us, who was a big strength for me, she ended up refinancing her home and gave me money to buy a home for my daughter, McKaylee, who's back there, and myself. My grandson wasn't born yet. And I ended up getting out of the contract. I ended up these people were now they're mad, right? Because they've invested time, they've invested money. But I was like, I can't do this. My life's still in danger. My mom's gonna, get money for me to buy a condo. So then I had to sign another document, a legal document, saying I would not do anything for 10 years about my life story. And at that time, I thought, I'm never going to do it. I'm not doing anything anyway. So don't worry about it. I got my condo. I'm all set. Fast forward to about 3 years ago, a friend of mine from pickleball. Anybody know what pickleball is? Yeah, you know me, you know pickleball. Actually, it wasn't even a friend of mine, a stranger, sort of, from pickleball came up to me and said, "Hey, and he's in the entertainment industry, and he's here, Stan Carlson in the back. He said, I heard that you were gonna have a movie made, and I'm in the entertainment business, and I kind of find it interesting. Would you like to meet and talk about doing this again? And at that point I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds good. And the Me Too movement was just starting. I'm not even really sure if it had even started yet. So Stan and I met, and in the course of meeting with another producer, it was suggested that we have a book written first. Okay? So here comes Alicia. Well, no, I went to Alicia. So I've known Alicia, met her in a boxing class years and years ago, and I knew she was a journalist, and she did a few stories on different. I was in assisted living as an activities director, and she did a story about that. She did a story about our high school reunions that we used to have out here. And so I thought, you know what, I like her. I like her writing. I trust her. I hardly knew her. And so that's how this all started. I got a hold of Alicia. She said, yes, I would love to. And after 3 years, she was like, oh my gosh. It was very draining for her. And can I say, with this book, when the initial movie and the screenplay and all that was in effect all those years ago, it was really mostly about the police department and my custody battle. It wasn't, we had never gotten to the part where we talked about my childhood, or, I was just speaking with Dave Newcomber, thank you, Dave Newcomber, and I was saying how it's kind of weird for me that someone would be interested in things other than police, right? But Alicia got me I'm going to tell you guys, if you read this book, there are things that are in this book that I never could say to anyone, or if I said to anyone, it would have been my best friend Libby, who's here. So there are things that I didn't even want to admit to myself, that Alicia got out of me in her wonderful way of interviewing and writing this story. So it is about, the focus is about what happened all those years ago and how women were treated in law enforcement. Yes, that is the focus, and how, when it's happening, it's wrong, but you can't believe that that it's going on. It's wrong, but because it's accepted, you just kind of live with it. And people think I'm not a supporter of the police. That's far from the truth. I have always supported police, good police. I continue to support police. I have donated to the foundation. I believe, it's hard for me I don't want to speak for things I don't know for sure. I believe the chief of police, Dave Livingstone, it's a whole different way of leadership. I know him as a man. I know him as I believe he was a teenager, an explorer. I believe it is not the same. I hope it's not the same, but I don't want to speak in case someone comes up and says, oh, But I don't think the things that happened back then could happen so blatantly, okay? People may do things behind the scenes, but the things that were done to me were just blatant. And and it's like I've got to talk to the crowd, right? I have a little 3-year-old. I don't want to say certain things with a little 3-year-old here, although he's heard me cuss. But when I look back at my young self, I go, wow, I cannot believe that those things were done. And I just hope we've evolved. And I write, the last chapter I actually wrote myself, and so it's not really well written, but it's basically my thoughts and my feelings that, I hope that this doesn't go on. And I want to say some other things about this. Because there's so many different facets to the book, there's, my growing up in New York, we ran away, there was a molestation, there is a brain injury, there is child custody. There's so many things, and I have had so many people contact me, and this is the best thing. I didn't even anticipate this. This is the best part for me, that I've had people contact me and tell me, oh oh my God, Flo, I went through this. Or, oh my God, Flo, I can't believe by you telling me this, it helped me to come to terms with what happened to me. Different subjects, not just about job actions. Kristen, I just saw you. Cute, I knew her little too. And so that's been hugely important to me. I've had long conversations on Messenger, long conversations on the phone, long conversations from different people with different things that have happened. So nothing negative yet, but you never know. I don't know. But so far it's been a positive experience. Now it's a little awkward because, my ex-husband is in there, who is the father of my daughter. But we've been very transparent, and my daughter, we tried every week when we meet, I'd say, McKaylee, do you want to see what's going on? Do you want to see what's going on? No, Mom, it's okay. And I never realized why she didn't until she posted a Facebook message, and she wrote how, she wanted this story to be about my story and not have any influence on it. So I've been really fortunate. I've been really fortunate in my family life of having loving family. Both my brothers are here. My fiance is here. Good friends. So I've been very fortunate in having the support. So basically this is my first time, so I'm not really sure, I'm trying to tell you guys what the book's about for those that haven't read it, but Alicia and I are here to answer any questions that you guys have, those of you that read it or haven't read it, and believe me, you can ask me anything. It'll go on forever. So any questions or comments? Oh, and the lovely girls in the back, Crossbones Photography, give them a big yay for taking pictures. I want to recognize everyone, but there's my pickleball partners here and my pickleball friends. Millie Mom, Marty Mom, so many people are here. Janet, she's in the book too, but not by her name. You'll have to guess what part she's in. So yes, Miss Barbara, yes.
So the other night I had a nice conversation with the new deputy chief, and he made a comment to me, and I think this may have something to do with you, in that the police department is now looking to hire as many women as they can. And I think that's huge, and they're adding.
I think that's wonderful too. I think they realize that, listen, Barbara, I believe that women and men, whatever the tests are, everybody's got to go through the same test, right? I was married to a police officer before I was a police officer, and I wouldn't want anyone in there that didn't pass the same test, man, woman, it didn't matter what. But I think, I think it's really kind of fascinating, really, this is a fascinating subject, that why back then were not all people. I had a couple people that were very forward thinking about women, but why back then it was so difficult for men to accept women in the police department when it was the same testing.
It wasn't just the police department. You look at Rotary.
Same thing with Rotary.
Same thing with Rotary. They did not want women in Rotary.
And I would like to talk to those people, and I would like to understand. I would like to understand. So I think, as generations, my little grandson, I think he's going to be neutral to everything. That wouldn't even be a question when he grows up. I hope, oh, there was a man, there was a woman. I think in the police department, and the officers that did these awful things, I'm going to tell you, I don't think they did awful things with citizens, right? I'm not saying they were bad cops out there with citizens or anything like that. They were bad internally. And I have had a few officers apologize, and I know that must have been really, really, really tough. And I so much appreciate that. And I have had others that have not. But I'm happy to hear that more women are being. In fact, I have read some. Is David Livingstone the deputy chief?
No, he's chief.
He's chief, okay.
Livingstone.
Yeah, and I had read something that they were hiring more women. I mean, hiring more women, but you still have to treat everyone, you know, equal and treat them the same. And I cannot imagine, I mean, for those of you that haven't read the book, things that had happened to me, I was a DARE officer, so I was in the paper quite often. And, you know, and that's a thing that back in the day, right, the paper came to your house. I mean, it wasn't like today, you know, and excited to read the paper because you knew that someone came out to cover you for the DARE program. And the next day I'd go to work and there would be my articles hung up in the police department and nasty stuff written on them. You know, one in particular, one time I was speaking to a class, and I remember this more specifically than anything. They wrote "Year of the Breast" across my breast. You know, they wrote "Year of the Breast," and you know, I would go into the police department and I would take down these cartoons and these, and I had complained to the chief of police, and this was the name of the movie from years ago. The name of the movie was "Boys Will Be Boys," because the chief of police said, "Flo, boys will be boys." And I was crying in his office. I mean, I think I'm so tough, but I cry here too. But I was crying in his office in my uniform saying, because this was probably after the 5th time it happened with a different article. And he's like, "If you want to work here, you just have to accept it." Now, he was not mean to me. He didn't cuss at me. But it was just so matter of fact. So I never kept those. And I was talking to Todd, I think, the other day, like, I documented a lot of things because I was going to quit. And my mom says, "You're not quitting. You worked really hard for this. You are not quitting. You start documenting everything." I never kept those cartoons because I was so humiliated. I just would pull them off the walls and throw them in the trash. There is a lieutenant that did collect all those cartoons. And we know that when we filed a lawsuit. He had all, I'm going to say news articles. They wrote poems about me. I don't know who they were, disgusting poems about me. There was sexual harassment like it was nothing. And